Good afternoon, everybody. Here we go with Hamish Niven. Hamish is someone who I've known virtually for a good couple of years now. When I've had a question relating to interiors and how the bracketing works, etc., etc., I've always managed to give him a shout, and without fail, he's come back with as much information as he can. I found him to be a fantastically generous and giving person. So I can't wait to share, his images and his knowledge with you today. So Hamish, I'm going to hand it over to you. How's it going on that side? What have you been doing while the lockdown is in place?
Hi guys. Well, Quentin, thanks so much for getting this on here. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I have been looking at pictures, putting pictures together for this presentation, going, wow, I've got some good stuff. Wow, I've been really lucky to go and visit some amazing places. So I've been doing that really, and running around my garden 99 times for 5 kilometers.
You haven't done an Ironman in your garden yet, have you?
I haven't done that, no. And I've been pulling my hair out, as you can see as well, like you have, yeah. But no, just getting on with things really. So it's been really nice to come and do this presentation for you guys.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see your images.
Right, shall I give it a go then?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of seconds. Okay, this is me and this is what I do. I photograph people, places and things. Today we're going to look at the places side of it, which is my first love, photographing properties, houses, accommodation, things you go in, things you go out. I've been doing this for a while. I actually look back to see when I started shooting commercially, and it was 2000, 2001, something like that. And then I started doing some real estate photography back in the UK, and I wasn't happy with what I was getting, and I tried taking some studio lights and it wasn't worth the effort. So I looked at this thing called HDR. This is when tone mapping had just come out, and it was awful. So I looked at various other ways, and very, very quickly I found something called fusion blending, or Enfusion. This is a different way of putting pictures together from standard tone mapping, and the results are what I started doing in 2004, came over here in 2006 and haven't stopped doing. So places. We'll start off with a little place up in the mountains between Stellenbosch and Franschhoek. Photographed this a few years ago. It was a stunning shoot. I got to stay there overnight in an awful lot of money per night place, photographing the suites, the rooms, the apartments, the food and things like that. This was really something really rather special. So I just want to show you a few pictures of what I do before we go into the meat of what I'm going to talk about. Nobby, this one's for you. You might recognize this. I put this up on the page the other day. This is a little place, and you can see in the corner, you can see, not in the corner, through the first window, you can see the stadium in Cape Town. This was actually shot for, I was passed this over because the guy couldn't shoot it. So I got into this 40 million rand place. It was very difficult to shoot because it's so white. I actually put some lights in the background, and you can see on the chairs on the right-hand side, I put a bit of light in there, just so you can sort of see there's a bar area to the right, the light coming in. And then this is a little place in Tuscany. Actually belongs to one of my school friends. I still have to pinch myself when she says, yeah, I've got this villa in Tuscany. So I went out there some years ago and just photographed this place and put this together for her. And that's her pool. Yeah, so I get to travel a little bit. This was stunning. I got to photograph this early in the morning, get up for something like that when it's absolute mirror. And then once I finished photographing it, I had to jump in and splash around before the rest of the world came and joined us. Okay, the boring bit, preparation for a shoot. This is so incredibly important. If I don't get this right, I'll turn up without memory cards or with flat batteries. Both have happened a long time ago. In my bag, I've got 2 Canons, always 2, essential for having one, just a spare one just in case. Plenty of spare batteries. I've got a battery grip, so that takes 2. So I've got plenty of spare batteries, plenty of memory cards, at least 4 or 5 lying around. And I shoot to both cards. Whole pile of lenses, depending on what I'm doing. Simple toolkit, all the essentials. Extra tripod plate. It's all very well having a camera, but you lose a tripod plate and you can't shoot with a tripod.
I've pitched up to a shoot like that once before. Tripod was there, the plate was not on the camera. There's nothing you can do. It's just, you know.
Yeah. So I keep one of my spare heads in my tripod bag as well for that reason, because I have done the same. And gaffer tape doesn't work when you're doing multiple exposures. 2 cameras. This is a good one. I did a shoot some years ago, and I've set the camera up on the tripod in a department store and turned the camera on. It started taking photographs. So I turned the camera off again, I turned it on, it carried on taking pictures every couple of seconds. I took the lens off, I checked it, it carried on doing. I took the camera down and put the second camera on. It carried on doing it. I rang Raymond at Digital Camera Services. And as we were doing this, I actually leant on the tripod and I moved the tripod round and it stopped doing it. And there was something going on in the shop, setting off the trigger in my camera. So that's why 2 cameras are essential, just in case one goes down. Lights, always have lights with me. I take 2 Profoto heads, and then I take a light meter for metering. And we'll talk about light painting later on, which is what I do for most of my interiors. Anticipation. When you get a shoot for a client, you need to find out what they want. Incredibly important. They may want stuff that you can't do. They may want stuff that you don't have the skills to do, or they may just have no idea. You know, the whole thing that the client is always right is not true. We have to educate them. We have to explain to them. If they want some pictures for marketing, we have to ask them what they want, how they want to do it, and things like that. The weather, incredibly important. If you're doing an exterior, do they want sunshine? Do they want flat light? Again, that depends. And then what time of day is needed for the light? If your building faces north and west, do you want daytime? Do you want morning lights or afternoon lights so you can get sun on the west side and things like that? So those are really important things to consider when you're doing a shoot. Couple of days before the shoot, check the weather to make sure that everything is all right, and check all your equipment. Make sure your batteries are charged, your camera is clean, bits and bobs, memory cards are wiped and ready and things like that. Ensure your client has paid your booking fee, unless you've got corporate clients, and then they pay when they feel like it. And then the most important thing on the day of the shoot, get there early. There's no excuse to be late. Really isn't. If you know the traffic's bad, leave a bit earlier. And if you know it's really bad, just leave a lot earlier. Take coffee with you. I have a little black flask, and enjoy that coffee when you get there. And then when you're at the shoot, as I've mentioned, preparation is incredibly important. And then once you get there, so is the presentation. Take the creepy crawly out. Anybody who leaves a creepy crawly in the shot, you're not trying hard enough. You're not giving your client a good job. And if you haven't got enough time to take a creepy crawly out, well, then you should have got there earlier. That is not the sign of a good photographer or somebody trying to impress people. Styling an image is incredibly important. We're in that whole industry, so it makes incredibly important to do that. Line up chairs around tables. When I photograph boardrooms, I will bend down, I will straighten all the wheels. All the wheels are lined up and the back's lined up, which is brilliant. The only problem is when you've got some fat oak who sat on it and the chair's leaning back, but you can't do things like that. Tidy up cushions, tidy up spaces, dog bowls, cat bowls, don't see them. Toilet brushes, don't see them. I work on the assumption that every single shoot, every single shot should be a portfolio image, even if it's a horrible space. The client loves that space. They've got you in to do your best. So shoot with compassion, shoot with love, and give them images that they're going to go, awesome. So important. And if you can't love your shoot, love what you're doing, love that you're putting effort into making it, because that will come out in your images. They will look that much better. Don't just stick a 10mm or 16mm wide angle lens and go, looks rubbish. Beds are square, beds are rectangles, they're not diamond shaped. You know, your bed is that shape, it is not that shape. If the bed's too close to the lens, it becomes that shape. Hope you can see that. So, you know, make an effort, really, really make an effort.
Hamish, I think that's the best description of wide angle item stuffed really close to the lens that I've ever seen.
Well, that's exactly it. There's nothing worse when you've got the camera close to the front of the bed than the bed is to the wall. You can't make that look nice. Stick a wide angle lens on, the back of the bed disappears. Well, it's up to you. If you want to make a good impression, if you want to keep that client, you just have to think a bit more out of the box and just shoot some of the bed and some of the space and things. Incredibly important, keep your horizontals horizontal. Formal shoots, even if it's for an estate agent, we are doing stuff that needs to look really, really good. Don't have your camera too high, and again, don't have your camera too low. You really don't want to be seeing underneath of kitchen surface, kitchen tabletop, kitchen cupboards and things like that. It doesn't look very nice. We don't see it standing there. We don't want the camera to see it. Okay, this is what I do. Interiors, architecture, tourism, and then light painting. We've still got plenty of time, so we're going to touch all of these. Architectural photography. Beautiful places. This was the first Dunkin' Donuts in South Africa. They said get there at 6 o'clock, it opens at 7. I got there at 6 o'clock, there were queues all the way around the building. So I got there at 5 o'clock the following day, just before the sun was coming up, and I got that. Unfortunately, the no entry side doesn't really give a good impression, but that's what they wanted. That says Dunkin' Donuts, beautiful light, beautiful morning night, no people there, just a really, really noisy ground, which is what it is. One of my favorite places to photograph, this is the Arabella down in Glenmond area, towards Hermanus. Early morning shoot. They said they didn't want this photograph. They didn't want any early morning stuff. They had plenty. So I went for a walk and got this, and you can just see everything. It sums it all up. And I said, "Do you want this?" And they went, "Yeah, please." So even if a client says they don't want something, go make the effort. And to be honest, I got up early. I wanted to walk, and when you have light like this, you've just got to do something with it. This is a fab picture. This is 40 photographs. Any of you who know this road, you know there's always cars on here. So I took lots of pictures when there was a gap here and a gap there, and I literally drew a little square or circle around that place and then put it in. So I had layer after layer after layer of that photograph, and then just took out all the cars. And I was actually standing really close to the edge of the road, so people were waving at me politely saying, "Hello, please get off the road, you so-and-so." But that's what we got, and the client was really, really happy with that image, and I'm really happy with that. Another place, this is in Franschhoek, beautiful home. The guys who own this place, they were going to get a photographer, and I won't name drop, but basically the daughter of one of my clients, she said, "You're using Hamish, he's the best in the industry." And we had the most fantastic shoot. And when the pictures went to the website designer, I had to phone her up and say, "You've done such a beautiful job." And she'd never ever had a phone call from a photographer to say, "Thank you for laying out my pictures so nicely." Doesn't take a lot of effort to thank someone, and I haven't done any more work with her since then, but we've often had conversations about things. So it was a fantastic shoot and really, really fun and great, great results. Interiors. Obviously, you've got to go outside and then you've got to go inside. So this is going inside from outside. Little place in Kloof Neck in Clifton. This lady, she's actually Sue Bond. She is an interior designer of note. She does beautiful stuff, absolutely stunning. Adam Lesch has done a lot of photography for her. I've done a fair amount of photography for her, and her homes are breathtaking. This was actually one of the 2 real estate shoots I did this year, because she was selling the place.
Hamish, just back on that previous one. I'm assuming that there's a couple of exposures there. Do you want to talk about that now, or are you going to talk about that later?
No, I will do, absolutely, yes, because this is, yeah. So this was 5 exposures. I only ended up using 4. So obviously one to get the outside, one for the shadows. So in the room on the left, on the right, get a bit of detail in there. And then, yeah, so the 4 pictures were all combined. I actually use a plugin for Lightroom. Yes, I do. Yep. Over the years, they've changed when things have changed. So I put all the pictures in there, press a button, and off it goes. And then it spits out a very neutral, very soft image, uncontrasty image. So it's a little bit of a tweak with a curve in Lightroom, and then a bit of touching up here and there. But there's no flash with this. It was just what was there. But obviously, as Quentin pointed out, with 4 pictures to get me the tonal range that I really needed to see from outside all the way to inside. This was 3 exposures. And then there was a flash in the kitchen, there was a flash on the chairs, there was a flash to light the things in front of the mirror, there was a flash on the plant in the back between the wardrobe and the kitchen, and then there was a bit of a flash on the chairs, basically under the wood places. This house, I'm actually going to talk about another photograph in this house in a minute. This house took me half a day to photograph it. It was so beautiful and so fussy. Everything had to be beyond perfect, otherwise it just looked scruffy. So this was a lot of hard work. I learned an awful lot, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the client...
Hamish, just a quick... Yeah. With regards to having lights on, do you have a preference? And this one, obviously, the chandelier doesn't have the lights on. So I just wanted to find out from you if you preferred either way, or if it's a client decision.
It depends on the feel of the room. Having a light on in broad daylight has no sense for this photograph. If I was in a modern kitchen with neon lighting and strip lighting and special fancy lighting, basically to tell the story of the space, then absolutely. Bedroom in the evening, lights on. It's whether the light enhances or just makes it light. That's how I work.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And if the client says lights on, I will give them lights on and lights off. So here we are. This one's got lights on. You can see there's lights on in the bar. There's lights. Yeah, there's lights on in the bar, and there's lights on the painting on the chimney breast. This was a stunning property. Again, this was 3 exposures because it was very dark in places. There's that strange cow with pink ears and a pink nose. I flashed a light on there just to light that artwork up. I put a flash on the artwork above the chimney, above the fireplace, to light that as well. And I put a bit more light on the copper-coloured chairs in the bar area. And also a light on the woodwork on the stairs, because it was quite blue. So there's quite a lot of extra work on here, but it really makes a big difference. It was so flat without that.
I suppose that's the thing, you until you start shooting interiors, you think everything is the same white balance. But then you sort of have one temperature inside, the reflection on the, as you say, on the stairs is a little bit bluer. The tungsten lights are warmer. So that really must take up a lot of your time to try and combine all of that, or at least try and mitigate the differences.
Yeah, absolutely. And on my lights, I have a whole pile of coloured gels, colour correction gels, CTOs. I have a half orange and a quarter orange that I will use to warm up the cold daylight light, so just to make it a bit warmer and to fill it in, especially when if I'm photographing in the evening and there's a lot of tungsten lighting in there. So this one I would have had a half orange on my lights just to warm it up a little bit, otherwise it would have gotten too blue in there. This is another little penthouse. This is on top of the Onyx in town. This was a beautiful shoot. I had so much fun doing this. Sunsets are always a bit of a rush. So if you look closely, you'll see that this table is not quite perfectly lined within the center of the O of the little porthole, and the lights aren't either. I should have moved over a little bit. I'd have actually seen a little bit more of the media of Media 24 that I saw. But this was a great shoot, and thoroughly enjoyed it, and the client was ecstatic with the results. There's no flash in this. This is just early evening. So you have all the fun, you take all these beautiful photographs, and then there's details, incredibly important details to show what's going on. This was for an architect. He was very, very proud of this staircase. So I grabbed him this photograph. I wondered about the stain on the woodwork. It's water stain. I thought, no, we'll leave it there. Little bit of touching up here and there, but not a lot of editing. That sky was that blue. And obviously the skies go blue when you've got lots of white everywhere. So this is a really powerful but simple image just to say a detail of a shoot. Same kind of thing. Again, this was for, you can just see it's a Signature. They are a big developer. This is one of their buildings. And they didn't just want the shots of the room, they also wanted a sense of the scale and the size. So in the evening, looking up, again, this is an example of when you don't want your vertical and stuff, you want to show that shape, and that's what we've got. I wanted the starburst, so I shot this at f/16. I don't normally like shooting my aperture that small because it diffracts, but I wanted the stars, so that's what we got. Tourism. This is where I cut my teeth in South Africa. When I landed here on August 17th, 2006, I had a bag with me, my lights with me, and I was very enthusiastic, and I sat next to some grumpy, miserable, rich Englishman who owned a house in Camps Bay. And I just sat next to him and talked. By the time I got to Cape Town, I had a job. I photographed his house. He introduced me to a guy, and I shot over the next 5 years 100 houses in Camps Bay and Clifton. And so a lot of my work is tourism. And then first trip into a beautiful hotel. This is the Fire and Ice Melrose Arch. They just done a revamp, and I was up there for 3 days to do the shoot, and the staff made this presentation absolutely beautiful. They did such a fantastic job. I was ready, they were ready, putting this out, and then 30 or 40 of them stood around the whole space, taking photographs, taking selfies, doing this, doing that. And the client was, and I just grabbed his arm and took him aside and said, this is their day. They've put all the effort into this. I'm here for another day. We will do this the following morning. They'll just have to make it look as good. And yeah, they spent the next 15 minutes, they just took more and more photographs of this. This is multiple exposure. You put a bit more light in the tree. I put a light on the chairs to the left and several other flashes just to make this, so multiple exposure and several flashes as well, just to make this a little bit, bit brighter and a bit shiny in places. Sometimes everything goes right. You just get perfect. This is for a beautiful place in Clifton. We had a lovely shoot, and then sunset happened, and that happened. And we had reflections, we had blues and oranges and pinks and turquoises. They still use these shots 5-6 years later. And I still see them on their social media, and I'm really proud and I'm really honored to get a shot like this. It just says tranquility and peacefulness. I really enjoy doing things like that when it all comes together. Corporate work. A lot of my work is corporate. So here this is in a hotel. They just wanted something just to show a bit of the corporate space. We could have put a coffee in there. We didn't have time, but it just shows what's going on. Okay, I said I'll talk about places, but going into places, doing hotels and things like that, you get people in there. So you get the chef of the Arabella who eats well. So I have to photograph people. So this, I lit him gently from both sides just to get a bit of catch lights on his eyes and a tiny bit of light behind him. So yeah, I said I photograph places, I photograph people as well. A lot of the stuff as well is lifestyle photographs for their marketing, for social media, for a summer campaign and things like that. So this is what I often do as well. So we've got to integrate people into the shoots and things. So it's always a bit more fun. You've got hair, you've got makeup, you've got this, you've got that, and never enough time to do things. So it's always a bit of a compromise, but it means it's a bit more fun. This is when it's so important to have my flashlights. Speed lights will not work. I need 500 watts. Sometimes I need a bit more. And food, people, places and things. Restaurants sell cocktails, they sell food. These were fun. When you got so much reflections and so much color, you can really play with it. So plonk it on a bar, available light, bish bash bosh. I enjoy doing things like these. And then again, there's the food. So you've got stuff the chef has lovingly prepared, and then I have to try and tell the story with that. So we've got the food, and then we've got a wine that matches with it. Okay, light painting. This is what makes my pictures special. A lot of guys do it. A lot of guys don't do it very well. A lot of guys do window pulls and things like that. Some do it really well. Some, I think, make them look unnatural. For me, photography is all about making it look natural. It has to look what the client, the customer, the guest will see when they get there. No good turning up at a place where the photographs make them look beautiful and it looks terrible. You're doing your client a disservice, and the customer could actually get very irritated and cause a lot of stink because you're misrepresenting. So it's incredibly important to be honest. This was the shoot I mentioned earlier. This is a beautiful place in Klufneck and in Tamburskloof. The one that was very, very tough to photograph. You'll see why now. That was the study. One poxy little light outside through the window. There was this white wall bouncing all the light in. This is actually a multiple exposure, as best I could get without too much bleed. I mean, you can see from the left, there's that funny pattern of light coming in. So I had to take that and make that. I'm not going to go into the details of how I put it all together. I'm going to do Quentin's asked me to do a tutorial on a Tuesday tutorial, which I will go over, not this picture because this took a long time, on some simpler ones. But to get from that to that, I used about 6 different flashes moved around the room. So now I'm going to go through them. That one there, that lights the table in front with the books, and it lights the peacock. What I will do is I won't use all of that. I'll just use a section of that picture of the light on that photograph. That one there, again, that's there to light the couch, both couches, and all the stuff in the middle, and a bit of light onto the safe in the background. I mean, you see that hot spot in the painting, so I would not be using that part of that image for that photograph. This is a little bit more light on the peacock, and just a little bit more ambient light in there. And then this is the last one, just from the rest of the side on the house. Again, here you can see I've put the light on the window frame, onto the 3 cushions and things, and onto the sofa on the bottom left-hand corner. So with a bit of time, a lot of patience, a lot of colouring in and not colouring in, a lot of painting and layering, and some luminosity masks. And actually 2 more images, I got that. You do see a reflection of the lights in the painting. I wondered about taking that on, but I decided I just couldn't be bothered to Photoshop it out because it was very complicated. And I'd spent 6 hours at a 3-hour shoot.
Yeah, I think that's more to the point.
Well, yeah, I've got to try and pretend I've got some integrity, but yeah, I got bored. So yeah, so that was Heatherfield, and then this is another beautiful place. This is for one of my clients. I do a lot of work with her. So this is straight out of the camera, single shot. I mean, you can see it's flat. When I actually take my pictures into Lightroom, I use the Canon neutral profile. So there is no, it's very, very flat. There's a good reason for that. I will cover that more in the tutorial. The problems you can see in this picture, on the right-hand side above the chimney, you can see half of a lady holding something and the rest of her is obscured by a reflection. You can see some paintings and pictures and artwork on the wall, but they are really muddy. You can't get much detail. You can see a door in the back that goes somewhere, but you can't see a great deal. So we've had to go from that to that. This took quite a lot of time, and the most difficult part was getting the reflections out of the mirror, out of the glass on that painting. So again, we went from that to that. So where do we start? I closed the doors, I closed the curtains to make the room as black as possible. And then I lit the sofa and the artwork on the back wall there. Again, on a shot like this, I won't want all that white on the wall, so I will use a lot quicker than it sounds. I spent some money on some. Sorry, yeah.
Just go back to the your voice cut out there for a little bit.
Okay.
Just go to where it was. You won't use the white around the pictures.
If you can see, the wall is very white because I've put a lot of flash in there to get the detail into the artwork. So I'd use a layer mask to get the shadows and the lower mid-tones and ignore the white. So I can then just bring that part of the picture up without obviously overexposing the rest of it. So that's one shot. There is the artwork. Again, I've just lit this. With having all the curtains closed, there's no reflection on there, so I can use that picture. So her and the swan is perfect. And then I will take that picture and use just that piece in the final edit. Now again, so I did it the other way around. I've done these backwards. I left the doors open to light the room, then I closed them. So this one, I wanted a little bit more light onto the Proteus. You can see there I'm using my Profoto, and in my hand I've got the trigger that you can't quite see. There I've gone up the stairs, the light on, light off. You can see I went up the stairs just to put a little bit of light coming down there, just because up there is the bedroom, but it was very, very dark. So a little bit of light in there. There again, I lit the artwork. I just wanted to have a couple of options. I'll end up doing 10, 15, maybe even 20 flashes around a big space like this, and then I'll just select bits, or maybe some, or maybe even just 1 or 2. But this one I put a bit more light onto the couches and onto the artwork. Again, this one this is just for the darker pictures of the artwork there. And that's the final result. That's what it looked like to my eye. Obviously, I've closed I've opened the doorway up again, so the girl looks beautiful, the swan looks beautiful. I put a bit of light in the fireplace, which I didn't show you. It's a fireplace. I put a bit more light onto the wardrobe, and a little bit of light backlight onto the artwork in the passageway that goes out towards the back. So that was building up of that photograph.
That's very cool. I remember Jacques Crawford was saying that you know, when you're shooting B-roll, just make sure you've got enough B-roll, because you never know when you need it, and you think, you know, I should have got that water dripping from here, etc. And it's exactly the same in this sort of scenario. You know, if you spend another 15 minutes getting a couple more shots with light from different directions, you've got more to work with, as opposed to, you know, one shot of the back and I wish I'd had another one that was slightly softer, or etc. So I mean, it's a good point that you mentioned there about just making sure you've covered all your bases with the extra shots.
Yeah, and I learned that the hard way several times. It's nothing more frustrating when I've done a shoot like that early on, when I started doing this, and realizing I lit half a room, so I couldn't use any of the pictures, or had to be very, very careful. One of the problems with doing things like this is you've got to be very, very careful of shadows. You can put shadows here, there, and everywhere, and then really confuse people. I mean, I've just noticed now, you can see I put some light on the backs of the 4 chairs. You can see a shadow across the table there, which isn't there, because there is actually a doorway between the last door and the chimney and the fireplace, but you can just see the little bit of light coming in there where I put a shadow in. It's not the end of the world, it really isn't. But if you can suddenly see 3 or 4 harsh shadows and there's no hard light, it becomes obvious that you're faking it. And as I said, my image is all about looking as natural as possible, so I really don't want to confuse people, or they go, something's not quite right, and they don't know why. Because people will see it and they won't understand it or won't realize what it is, but it's not nearly as easy to fool people as you think it is. Right, and lastly, I'll actually copy paste this, or Quentin will, onto the group so you can see what I use. This is stuff I use to make my life a bit easier. I use the Photographer's. I'll send you the link. I can't pronounce that word, but basically it's an amazing map that shows you where the sun is and the moon any given time of the day or the week or the month, anywhere around the world. So you can track the sun and think, right, if I want to be in September, I want to do a shot there, because certain times of the year you can't do a sunset with the sun peering down between Lion's Head and Signal Hill, because it doesn't set down there. In the summer it sets further south, and the winter further north, or the other way around. Incredibly useful app. It'll tell you when nautical, astronomical sunrise is, normal sunrise, and all these things, because you've got your blue hour, you've got your golden hour, and all those things. Photopills used to be Apple only, but it's now Android. Does the same thing, easier to pronounce. Google Maps, we all know what that does. Webcams, I find webcams are really useful. I don't live in Cape Town. If I'm doing a shoot in Cape Town, I will phone a friend, and I'll also go on the webcams so I can see what it looks like in CamSpay, what it looks like from table view, and things like that. So that's really, really helpful. Tide times, these were discussed the other day by the Durban photographer. Incredibly important for certain shoots. I've had to do shoots right down on the in Clifton and things like that, and down in Backoven, and they wanted to see the view, they wanted to see the rocks. So I had to see what time the tides were in and tides were out, and then say we're going to have to do it in a week's time, because the tides move an hour or so every day. And then, most important when it comes to weather, don't use one weather website. I use 3, sometimes 4. And if 2 of them say the same thing, I know it's quite likely if 3 say all things different, I cancel the shoot or postpone the shoot. YR, brilliant. WindGuru, brilliant. Windy, brilliant. Those are my tools, really. Those are the guys I use for preparing my shoots, and to make sure God is on my side, to make sure the blue sky is on my side, to make sure everything is going to make it as easy as possible. Then I just have to do my magic. There we are, Quentin. 45 minutes, just under 40 minutes. So there's plenty of time for any questions.
Absolutely. I think the cool thing about the light painting, I suppose you'd call it. In fact, the light painting has got so many different descriptions and that sort of thing. But I really like the the sort of popping a flash on different elements, just to give it a bit of almost a bit more sort of 3D, a bit of a 3D feel to it. You know, if you just take those multiple exposures and blend them together, it can sometimes be quite flat, even if you do put in a bit of contrast. But I find, you know, putting a bit of flash somewhere, you know, just gives it also the more true color, but just that slightly a bit more 3D, you know, molding to it, which I really enjoy.
Absolutely, especially if you're photographing towards a window and you've got dark curtains or textured curtains. If your light source is, you're shooting into your light source, no amount of multiple exposure will get you light on there. So a quick pop, even if it's just bounce on the wall behind you, will make such an incredible difference. And I'll go into details of how you can how I use luminosity masks, or even just the luminosity masks, just to grab the lower levels, lower lit areas, and then I put my light into there. And 2 minutes, you have made a shot go from dull to really, really beautiful, very, very quickly, easily. And what's incredibly important, it doesn't take half an hour to make a photograph, because half an hour on a photograph and 20 photographs is. I was saying it's incredibly important with when doing this work for me that I use the time efficiently. I can't spend half an hour on a photograph editing a photograph, because 20 photographs, half hour each, that's 10 hours, and that's not cost effective. You know, we've got to pay the bills. So, you know, I keep the prices down by knowing what I'm doing, shooting intelligently, and paying for tools and using tools to do the job properly.
Absolutely. I'm really keen to see your tutorial, you know, combining all of those things, because but I think, you know, at the end of the day, obviously the more you do it, the faster you get, etc. But there's definitely you know, the more pops of flash that you use around the room, there's definitely a lot more time that it takes in Photoshop in the post-production to put all of that together. And I think it's, you know, the one thing that's always frustrated me is that there seems to be, and I know as with every genre of photography, you get different levels of clients. But what frustrates me no end is where you have real estate agents that are paying $650 for a shoot, but that's all the rooms, you know, everything, and that includes your time and travel, etc. And you know, there it is just a spray and pray type approach. Shoot it, get it out, and go for it. But it really doesn't bring across any of the sort of good parts of the home, etc. And I think for most photographers, it's really not something that they want to put on their portfolio, which I think is a huge pity, because it does take time to, you know, and obviously equipment, if you've got flashes, etc., to put a great image together.
Absolutely. It is incredibly unfortunate. You look at, I mean, I'm on a lot of pages, Facebook pages of photographers around the world doing real estate and all sorts of things. I mean, okay, a lot of these guys are doing places that make most of the stuff we have in Cape Town look boring and cheap, and the agents spend the money. Not everybody, of course, but these guys are allowed to use multiple exposure. They're allowed to use flash, and the results, they really, really make a big difference. It's unfortunate that the pictures are not valued in this country so much, and in fact to be in any country, but we won't go there. Probably more diplomatic not to go there.
Absolutely. So I've got a question from Carl Smarenberg. Do you use tilt shift lenses?
I would love to use them more often. I do have a 24mm tilt shift, which I do use, not as often as I'd like to, because a lot of people would like wide. Give me a big wide photograph. That's what they want. But I will not. Sorry, Karen Quentin.
I was going to say, it doesn't matter if the bed's pointing at you or if the couches are now triple width, etc. Just wide. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, I will not shoot wider than 21mm unless I'm in a big space. The bigger the space is, the wider you can shoot. But for me, I mean, everyone says there's compression, then everyone says there's no such thing as compression. Shooting with a wider lens, it does make the background go further and further away. I have in the past put a tilt shift lens on and moved it sideways. So I have done 1, 2, 3 photographs. And it just brings the background just that little bit closer, and it makes a huge difference. Unfortunately, when you're doing that, you can't use flash for doing that as well. It's just impossible. So 17mm I would never use. It's too wide for interiors, again, unless you're doing factories. But that's my feel on those things. So to answer your question, I do use them, not as often as I'd like to.
I think it's one thing that's stuck with me every time I'm in a small space and I'm kind of thinking I need to go wider. I've got Hamish in my head saying 20, and I always make sure that
yeah.
Have a look. No, hold on. It's 17.3. No, we got to get to 20. And I think it's a valid point. You can really distort the hell out of a room. And it just I think it makes it look a little bit cheaper, if it is distorted like that.
Absolutely.
So I don't see any other questions there at the moment. But I think the tutorial is going to be fantastic. The one thing that I've never really done is the window pulls. Maybe it's just because I haven't actually tried it, so I don't understand it. So I hope you're going to at least give a mention to it, even if you don't show exactly how to do it.
I can do that.
Let's see. So are we going to have that Tuesday tutorial on this coming Tuesday?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I did this on a Wednesday, so you couldn't get me to do it yesterday. Yeah.
Trust me, I was going to ask you. All right. So in that case, I don't think we've got any other questions, but there might be some on the discussion later. So I think we can wrap it up. Wanted to say a huge thank you to Hamish for joining us today and giving us some insights and some examples, etc. I really appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to your tutorial on Tuesday. So thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
No pressure. Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hamish. Have a good afternoon. Hey.
Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.